So, in my last video, I went over a dungeon master who posted 44 rules to his group chat or Discord or fucking Facebook or Pinterest, I don't know, after a hiatus toward his players. And for the most part, quite a bit of the rules were actually pretty reasonable, kind of like halfway. Like, I understood where he was coming from on quite a few of them. And there were 44 of them. We only got to get through the initial 16 because I only could find 16. The original posts have been deleted. Basically, if you want the whole story, then you can check out that video. I highly recommend it. But ever since I posted that video, I have now gotten additional context. Not only have I found the rest of the 44 rules, which we're going to go through today, but I have also gotten context onto something else that I was curious about, which was how the players were acting.
Riser, double.
I take how much damage? So the first thing I want to cover, because it is the far shorter and because it gives a lot of context to the situation, is how the players were acting. Now, I had mentioned that the original post had gotten deleted, and I found out from somebody who commented on my previous video that the reason that was because if you went through the OP's post history, you would learn that they did a lot of stuff purposely just to piss off the Dungeon Master. Now, I want to make it clear, the reason I'm going through the other 28 of the rules is because I think it's important that we continue to talk about Dungeons & Dragons on this channel, and I want to see if their reasonability or their halfway reasonability continues through, but we do know that this is the result of problem players. But I think this is also going to serve as a pretty good lesson that if you're a dungeon master and you have problem players, then you need to learn how to handle them. And this is going to be why. All of these rules were put out here in basically a fit of anger. They were put out in a fit of desperation and exhaustion. And as a dungeon master, you need to learn how to handle more situations. So I haven't read the rest of the rules yet. We're going to read them together. We're going to talk about them. And if I have any alternative ways that you could handle some of these problems with problem players, or if I think the rule is unreasonable, then we'll go through it. So that being said, all of this should be said with the context that the players were being problems seemingly on purpose. And that is a very big red flag, but you should still not be handling stuff in the angry way that this dungeon master was. So without further ado, let's get into the other 28 of the 44 insane rules. Rule number 17, guidance, divination spells, owls, and whatever spells I decide are too fucking stupid are banned. Outright, no more fucking guidance. I don't remember what guidance does. Okay, from the player's handbook, guidance is a divination cantrip that costs an action to cast. It's a touch with verbal and somatic components. And it's concentration up to 1 minute. You touch one willing creature once before the spell ends. The target can roll a d4 and add the number of rolled to one ability check of its choice. It can roll the die before or after making the ability check, then the spell ends. This is really funny, because he said guidance, divination spells, and owls. What a random thing. Whatever spell I decide are too fucking stupid or banned. So I don't know many dungeon masters who outright ban spells. Sometimes spells can be banned. I have banned spells before. Actually, I banned an entire class because it was really fucking stupid, but it was partially my fault for not reading the class first. But it was really fucking stupid. It was the Mystic. It could basically do every fucking thing and all of it. And there was another one, I think it was like Chromatic Orb or Chromatic Blast, or I forget what it was called, but basically it was like this big multi-elemental thing that you could cast at like level 4 or something, and it was stupid. It was a really dumb spell. So I understand banning spells, but banning fucking guidance? Why? Wait, it's just an extra d4. I do agree that them being able to roll it after the roll is kind of dumb. I would probably just make it to where they had to roll the d4 first before the roll, or they rolled it with their next roll or something like that. I never really liked the concept of things in the game where players could roll and then see that they were going to fail and then choose to roll an additional. The way I normally do it is with my Bardic Inspiration thing, is that the players can roll their Bardic Inspiration die after their roll, but before I tell them the results. So if they see the number, they can roll it, you know what I mean, kind of thing. It's hard to balance, but I don't see outright banning them. Also, like, what's your beef with owls? Like, I would love to know that story. That's the more interesting one. Guidance is like, you know, I can understand changing like one part of guidance. Outright banning it's kind of stupid, but what's with the owl? what happened with an owl that you want to ban it? Or is that a spell that I'm not aware of? I don't think that's in the player's handbook. I don't feel like looking it up. 18, you get one chance at a skill check. If you fuck it up, your party doesn't get their chance to do the same check. Think careful who's good at what. This is interesting because there's an entire discussion to be made around player knowledge versus character knowledge. Some skill checks you're just going to have to let your players do, right? Like if every single player is tracking an enemy, right? Like you guys are trying to follow a bandit who got away from a fight, then it would stand to reason that every character is going to try to look for footprints or broken leaves or listen for sounds or something like that, you know? So I would let them all do it. But then if you've got like one character is like kind of on alert and asks for a perception check and they fail it, I'm not going to let the rest of the players roll a perception check because they failed it. Right? First off, you don't know if they failed it. That's the entire point, right? Like I hate whenever a player rolls a perception, they get like a 12 or something or a 10 or whatever, and they look at me and I'm like, you don't notice anything out of the ordinary. Then the rest of them are like, oh, well, can I try instead? No, you can't. They asked for a perception check because I'm assuming their character was actively looking for something. You cannot roll because they rolled low. Like that's kind of reasonable. It just depends on the check. You need to be within the realm of reasonability. You know what I mean? 19, discussion of metagame details in game will result in instant damage to your character. So this is what I was talking about when I said that there's ways to handle this kind of stuff without being a dickhead. So I don't like metagaming. I think metagaming ruins a lot of the suspense when it comes to playing this game. I think that a lot of people just kind of don't understand how much metagaming can ruin a campaign and ruin encounters and things like that. The way I handle it is by subtly changing things. So if they're fighting a roper and one of them goes, "Oh, ropers have 30 HP." I don't actually know how much HP ropers have. I don't feel like looking it up, but, you know, oh, roper has 30 HP, 45 HP, whatever the case may be. Then I'm just going to change the HP value, and it'll normally be by changing it up. Sometimes I'll double it just to really piss you off. You know what I mean? If they're like, if they come across a creature and I describe it, like I visually describe it and I say, you don't really know what this is. And someone goes, oh, I know what it is. Okay, well now all of a sudden it's not that thing. Like, even if you get it right, I'm just going to change it on you. That's the cool thing about being the dungeon master is if your players try to metagame, you can circumvent that by just changing the way shit works. Those books are guidelines. If I want to change the way a spell works or change the stat blocks of a creature or something like that, I'm gonna fucking do it, and there's nothing you can tell me about it. But just like instantly damaging characters is crazy. And again, I want to know whether or not he was like talking to them about this first, like, hey guys, I'd really rather you not metagame, or if he just jumped straight into this crap. Number 20, rules lawyering fellow players is encouraged. Actuallying me will just result in me telling you to fuck off. It's all or nothing, man. It's all or nothing. They either get to rules lawyer each other and you, or they don't get to rules lawyer anybody. Okay, as the dungeon master, you are the rules. You are the rules as the dungeon master, right? Unfortunately, some dungeon masters take that too far, right? Some dungeon masters take that way too fucking far. But as the dungeon master, you are the rules. And if the rules become unfavorable to the players, they should be allowed to challenge that, right? Like if you make a call and it's unfavorable, they should be allowed to challenge that. However, I like the idea of challenging it after the session. And if anything major happened because of that ruling, we can retcon it if need be, right? Nothing's set in stone, but I don't like the idea of players telling other players what they can and can't do based off the rules. I will determine that. Number 21, you roll your dice within view of two players who aren't you standard. You roll them neatly and you roll them on the table. Failing to do these three things will auto-fail whatever roll you did, arguing that you actually rolled validly when you clearly didn't is an automatic critical fail. So rolling, this is another thing he did. What was that rule in the last video? He did another one where he was like, you got to involve like other players. The only person that needs to see your role is me. As the Dungeon Master, I am the only one that needs to see what your role is. Okay, and clearly and on the table are perfectly fine, perfectly reasonable, but like trying to get other players involved in watching your roll and all of it, just roll in front of me, man. Just like I'm across the table, I'm gonna stand up and be like, all right, what'd you roll? Okay, cool. What's your modifiers? Okay, cool. Let's get the, you know what I mean? Like this is unnecessary. That is unnecessary restrictions. But yes, rolling neatly and rolling them in clear view is needed. If you roll it off the table, then you will re-roll it. If you continuously roll off the table because you have a habit of chucking your fucking dice, then we'll start talking about critical fails for doing that, because that gets really goddamn annoying. Number 22, instant death traps and mechanics are coming into place. If you call these things unfair moving forward, I will laugh at you and tell you to fuck off and cry some more. Do I even dignify that with a response? Like instant death traps and mechanics? See, this is what I was talking about, where like, if you're ever at this point, right? If you're ever at this point where your players are so problematic that you're writing shit like, hey, I'm gonna instantly kill off your characters with traps and mechanics, it's time for you to find a new group, man. Like if you're this deep into like your anger at problem players, it's just time to find a new group. You just shouldn't be like DMing these people. Fuck, man, that is, I can't believe we still got 22 of these things left, dude. Like how many more could he do? 23, I will not give you random magical items and vendors will not stock them. They are meant to be rare and hard to acquire. I mean, fair. Sometimes I like to give magical items to vendors. I'll only include like one or two. Something that like I've heard a lot of DMs talk about is like they like to like put stuff that fits the characters. I don't. I mean, I do, but I don't. You know what I mean? Like I like to have vendors have like one or two magic items. Like let's say we had a sorcerer, a barbarian, and a bard, right? So two people need charisma, the barbarian needs strength. I like to randomly throw in something that increases dex, or I'll throw in something that increases wisdom, right? And then I might throw in like a shiny new axe for the barbarian or something like that, right? Like I like to put in stuff that's not necessarily, because I don't want to set it up like a video game, right? I don't want to be like, oh, looks like you made it far enough, guys, or here's stuff to make you bring your characters up to the next level. But also, sometimes if I'm preparing like a particularly difficult encounter or a boss or something, I'll throw a little bit of leeway their way. You know what I mean? Not all magical items are supposed to be rare and hard to acquire. Not all of them. Some of them are called common magical items, and that's stuff like a +2 sword or something like that. You know, it's not very rare. There's rarities in the DMG for you to go by. You know, like I said, there's so many of these where it's like, I get it, but I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like I'm in the between. 24, random encounters in the form of Dungeons and Dragons. Wait, hold on. Dyslexia, go brrrr! Random encounters in the form of random dragons or strange mysterious road trader or a band of goblin prostitutes isn't going to happen. Go play Baldur's Gate 3. Okay. It's your campaign. Okay. So you get to decide how the encounters happen, but why? Obviously, it's kind of weird if you just throw a dragon at your fucking players, right? But like, maybe they saw one flying overhead toward a city that they were heading to, right? Strange, mysterious road trader? That could sometimes be fun. That could sometimes be a really interesting role-playing experience. Goblin prostitutes? That's, seems like you got some personal issues. Anyway, 25, I don't give two fucks what Reddit said about X or Y ruling. You know what? This is probably the most fair one since the don't show up drunk or high. I don't care what Reddit said about X or Y ruling either. I don't give a fuck. Someday I'm going to tell the story about the disastrous campaign that ruined my ability to play Dungeons and Dragons for over 2 years. And part of that was part of what made that campaign fall apart and that group fall apart and me being alone and no longer being friends with any of those people is the reliance on third-party people to tell me as the dungeon master what to do. What happens in our games is between me and you. Me as the dungeon master and you as the player, what happens in our game is between us. Any rulings or encounters or things you didn't like needs to be discussed between us, like the fucking adults that we are. And if you go to other people for advice on a ruling that I've already, stood fast in, I'm going to get annoyed. I'm going to get pissed off. I'll probably tell you not to do that again and just come back to me. If you don't like something that I decide on, sometimes it's just a tough titty. Like sometimes I make a decision and we're just going to go with that decision, because if you want everything to be in your favor all the time, and I'll be honest with you, I like to rule in my players' favor. I like to make them feel like the heroes of their own stories. But if I make a ruling and it results in something negative to your player, and then you go cry to Reddit or whatever, and you're like, and Reddit's like, no, you're right. This should totally be this way. I don't care. I don't care what Reddit has to say. I don't. 26, I actually give less of a fuck about what your mate's D&D group did. During the session, yeah. Before and after, tell me your stories. I love hearing stories. I love hearing stories about stuff that happened in your other campaigns. It can be fun, and sometimes I get inspiration from that kind of stuff. But during the session, yeah. During the session, we're trying to play our game right now, Like I said, before and after, fuck it, tell me all your stories. During it, let's keep it to the game we're playing. 27, saying anything to me about other players not liking me doing X or Y without them saying it directly to me will result in me kicking you out of the group. Don't use someone else to push your own agenda. This is so hard, because I might make that video sooner than later about the disastrous campaign that broke up my friend group, because this is very similar to something that happened in mine, where a player was uncomfortable with something that I did. I wasn't like a creep or anything. I wasn't chill, okay? I know the way I look. I know I look like an incel. You ain't gotta fucking tell me. That wasn't what happened. I ran an encounter, or rather not ran an encounter, but I set up a boss monster that did some memory mind fuckery. And the way I set up the homebrew rolling table didn't quite work out. And basically the crux of it is this player didn't like the way that the session turned out. And instead of coming to me, they went to a completely different person that was outside of the game. And I didn't want them. They were new to me, right? Me and them had just met each other. They had joined because they were friends with the other players in the group. And so, but two of the players in the group, one had been my best friend for 14 years. Another had been my best friend for like 5 years. And so those two could have come to me with that player's problems, and I wouldn't have been mad about it. Sometimes players are very, very nervous about approaching you, and you have to seem approachable, which this person very obviously is not. So it's important to understand that sometimes somebody else is going to come to you and say, hey, Jessica didn't really like the way that you ran that, but she's very nervous to talk to you. And then you as the dungeon master have to be the person that goes, okay, well, tell Jessica to come talk to me. It's okay. I'm not going to get mad. Let her and I discuss it. Open communication, like the adults that we supposedly are. Number 28, you're not to sit down and have a 2-hour discussion about what Samson from Boondura Secondary did 3 weeks ago when you come to play. Take the 15-20 minutes I used to set up and review my notes to talk to each other, then sit down to play. Yeah, no, fair enough. Again, it's a little aggressive, but fair. Like I said, when we show up, we're here to play the game. We're here to play my game. We're here to play this game exactly. And sessions are limited, man. You have a limited amount of time. A lot of people do not understand how little you can get done in 3 hours. Right? Like if you've got an average Dungeons and Dragons session goes anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, right? It is amazing how little you can accomplish in 3 to 5 hours. Like, especially if like combat is involved or role play is involved, like so little can actually happen in those 3 to 5 hours. And it's incredibly important that we get the game started because we only have so much time. 29, saying shit like, guys, come on, we're not here to have fun. We're here to play D&D. This is serious business is rude and dismissive of how much work I put into this. I will simply go home if I hear this shit. I'm trying to figure out what this is implying. Cause like your whole demeanor this whole time has been, this is D&D. This is super serious. Like, your whole demeanor this whole time up until this point has been how serious you take this game. And don't get me wrong, D&D is supposed to be fun, and I get that you're like offended because they're not having fun and they're kind of mocking you, but like your attitude very much is, I'm not here to have fun, I'm here to play D&D. Like, I don't think you find playing D&D fun, and that's disturbing. That's just been your whole attitude up until this point. Number 30, don't fucking order food randomly. We will eat together at a specific time or not at all. I don't want food shit all over my things. Okay, so fair enough. You don't want food and grease and stuff all over like your minis and your, I'm guessing this guy provides like the playmat and the minis and stuff like that, right? I understand that. Like being like, we'll all eat together or not at all is so weird. It's so weird, dude. Like, remember when I said in the last video that this felt more like he's trying to babysit a bunch of kindergartners? That's what this is, man. Like, come on, man. I'm not gonna tell you, hey, don't you eat those chips. Hey, don't grab a slice of pizza. It's not time to eat yet. That's just ridiculous. Like, there's just a point where you gotta like realize like maybe I'm too much. Am I the drama? I might be the drama. Number 31, no food or drinks near any of my D&D gear. If you wreck something, you can pay for it. I let one person trash my DM screen once and I never had it replaced by them. In fact, I had that person attempt to gaslight me into believing they didn't wreck my shit at all. I'm not stupid. You're an adult. Accept responsibility. Fair enough. I have always said no open containers at the table. Not just because of my stuff, but because of everybody's, bro. If you got like a glass of Coke or something, and you bump that like when you're trying to roll the dice, that spills. That gets on these books are $50 a piece, man. These books are $50 a piece, dog. Nobody's got time to be replacing these fucking things. My Volos guide has on the corner. My Volos guide has a little bit that's like bent and shit. I'm not replacing that. I'm not replacing that book, bro. These things are expensive, man. So it's fair enough. I would say no open containers. And like I said with the food thing, man, like, people can get up and like grab a glass of, a slice of pizza or a handful of chips or something. Just make sure they don't bring it to the table. I think that it's important to have players invested. I like to have like if I have everybody sitting at my table, right? I like to have a little side table with like snacks, like grapes and chips and things like that. And occasionally players can like get up, stretch their legs, grab something to eat while they're waiting on their turn. As long as they're invested, as long as they're paying attention, as long as something like that's going on, I don't really mind it. Just keep your shit away from like the table so that we don't start fucking up everybody's belongings, man. This isn't it's a free hobby to get into, but once you start buying the shit, it's expensive shit. You know what I mean? Number 32, arguments between party members outside of roleplay will be resolved by me giving the definite ruling, if you don't like it, fuck off back home. A tad aggressive, but fair. At the end of the day, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, you as the dungeon master, you are the rules. You are the rule book. So if two players are arguing about a ruling and I'm like, actually, this is how it works, this is how we're gonna do it, shut the fuck up, because this is how it works and this is how it's gonna do it. You know what I mean? 33, I don't give a fuck about what they did in Critical Role. Oh, okay. I don't give a fuck about what they did in Critical Role or what that one guy did on Reddit said, or if you think that it's all make-believe so you can do what you want. The world I run works on internal rulings and the lore I created specifically for it. Critical Role has simultaneously become the best thing and worst thing to happen to the hobby. Because it's the best thing because it gets a lot of people into the hobby, and that's great. I love it. I want everyone to play this game. If I can convince I want to do more campaigns with brand new players, right? Like it's great. I want to get everybody into the hobby. I want you all to be right here and ready to play. And it's so fun and so interesting and so engaging. It's my favorite thing to do. Literally, Dungeons and Dragons is my favorite thing to do, right? So I'm not going to gatekeep anybody. I take new players all the time. New players are very, very welcome. I love teaching people. I love watching them grow. I started teaching a player. He's a friend of mine right now. I started teaching him a few years ago. He played in a few of my campaigns. He ran a very miniature campaign on his own, and I was very, very proud of him. It was so cool to watch him evolve to love this hobby as much as I do. But at the same time, there's this idea that's built in people's head that Critical Role is how every campaign is going to go, and as a dungeon master, it really hurts to put effort and time and energy into a campaign. Like, the reason the Forever DM meme is alive and well is because nobody wants to be a dungeon master. Because you think you do, right? You start playing the game as a player, you play in a couple of campaigns, and you're like, oh, dungeon master sounds fun. And then you realize how much fucking grueling work goes into making a campaign happen. And you get very discouraged very fast. And so the guy who was the dungeon master who thought they were finally going to get to be a player, like, this happens to me all the time, right? Happens to me all the time. I start teaching people how to play the game. We start playing the game, and then somebody starts building a campaign, and they're like, I want to be a DM. Can I be it? And I was like, yeah, go for it. Let's do it. And then I start playing in their game, and they get 3 sessions in, and they get tired, and they get burnt out, and they get frustrated. And then all of a sudden it falls apart, and I'm right back to DMing. You know what I mean? So people don't really understand like how hard it is to be a DM. And so when all of that hard work is just kind of overshadowed by a large production team with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and stuff like that, and you've got professional voice actors and somebody who's been dungeon mastering for 30 goddamn years, or however long Mercer's been doing it, or whatever the case may be, it gets really frustrating. You know what I mean? But again, this guy's like very. Actually, this one's not as aggressive. This one's actually kind of tame, to be honest. But yeah, it is very integral that your DM knows what they're doing. And even if they don't, we can handle that later. Just don't tell your DM, oh, but they did this on Critical Role and I'd rather this, because it undermines all the hard work they put in. Number 34, every single person in this chat is having debuffs applied to their characters that should have occurred a long time ago. This will be specific to characters. No, your time has passed. You want to hold your players to a certain standard, you need to hold yourself to one. If you fuck up, that is you. I do this all the time, right? If a player rolls something and I miss a ruling, or I miss the fact that they already did their bonus action, or I miss that they did, that they ran out of spell slots because I wasn't keeping track or something, that's on me. You know what I mean? And as a dungeon master, that's on you. You don't get to go back and retroactively fuck your players because you decided you weren't going to do something. This is one of those ones where I hard disagree. Don't do that. 35, if you don't bring your sheet, you don't play. You as the dungeon master should have all of their character sheets available to you. You should have a copy of their character sheet in your possession. The reason being is because you need to know what your players are capable of to set up encounters. So whenever they make a character sheet, whether you photocopy it or you have all of their stuff written down in front of you, especially somebody who like seems completely like not trusting of people as you are, like this dungeon master like seems like he doesn't trust anybody, I don't see how you wouldn't have a copy of their character sheet to make sure they didn't change anything on it. At 36, if you don't bring dice, borrow some. I mean, fucking obviously, like what? Why is this a rule? Are people just like, were people showing up to the game? Like, this is one of those things where it's like, this is kind of more evidence to the fact that the players were just assholes. Cause like, were people showing up to the game and being like, oh, I don't have any dice. Can I do the backflip anyway? 37, when we play D&D, I'm not your friend. That doesn't mean you treat me like an enemy. It means I'm no longer being nice. You're nice? You just don't seem like a nice person. I don't know, man. I feel like you're not that nice to begin with. But even so, I feel like that's one of these things where like you should be your player's friend because you're all supposed to be friends. Like outside of like a professional setting, like if you hire a dungeon master, you're all supposed to be friends playing a game together, right? Like it's a serious game. It's a game you have to take, commit to and everything. But like if you don't think of these people as your friends, then why are you playing the game with them? And this goes back to that thing that I was saying in the last video where this is just like, you need to leave. You need to leave this campaign. This campaign is obviously not for you. These players are obviously not for you. You obviously don't think of them as your friend. You need to just go, right? Like you need to remove yourself from this situation. 38. If you treat me poorly in any way, shape, or form after or during or before the game due to something that happened in the game, you're out. If you cannot separate a game from reality, I think you are a fucking moron. I have little time to deal with that energy. And here it is. This is the context we were missing in the last video. This is the proof of the pudding that what happened was these players were fucking assholes. They were pieces of shit. They were absolute jackasses. And this guy just lost his fucking mind. He lost his mind. He got pissed off. He got exhausted. He went in with the intention of being as asshole-ish as he could toward people who were assholes to him first. And the reason I'm still not fully on this guy's side is because this is how you don't, this is not how you handle it. This is not how you handle it. Okay? This isn't how you go about this. I understand the anger. I understand the frustrations. I understand the exhaustion. But when my old group fell apart, the reason I'm not friends with any of those people anymore is because I realized I could not play for them. At the end of the day, at the end of the point in time, I realized I could not run a game for any of them anymore because it simply was no longer going to work. And that is what I think this guy needed to understand. But we've got a couple more left, so let's get through them. 39, you will submit your spell list daily in-game. If you do not give me a spell list each in-game day, you will not be allowed to cast a single spell or cantrip in combat. I do not trust you guys to not use this against me. Again, this is just further evidence that he's gotten burned. He's very untrustworthy toward these, or not very untrustworthy. He's very untrusting toward these players. And if you get to this point, like, I get it, right? I get wanting to keep track of the spell list and everything. Mostly because it's not, for me, I want your spell list because not because I don't trust you, but because we all make mistakes. We're all humans, right? So I want the spell list so that I know what you've got, so that we can all keep track together, right? But sometimes people burn you too. 40, if you do not mark off spell slots or say something like, I remember what I'm at as a way to justify it, I will simply fail your spell, deal half your health and damage to you, and say you have, Jesus fucking Christ, again with this overreaction, man. Again with this like over the top solutions or punishments to problems that aren't that serious. If they don't mark off their spell slots, that's why you have them handing your spells to you. So you can mark it off yourself. Okay, I'm gonna use my 5th level spell slot. You can't, you already used it. Oh, when? Okay, well right here, you used it last combat. Okay, you know what I mean? That's it, that's all you do. You don't allow them to do it. You don't gotta fucking deal damage to them and cancel their spell out and take away their ability to catch. You don't gotta do all that, man. That's too much. You're doing too much. All right, number 41. If you break literally anything, you can buy the replacement that day or not attend until you do. Fair enough. You break my shit, you're gonna buy it, and I don't want you around if you're gonna keep breaking my shit. 42. If you complain about the choice of music, I fully expect you to bring the whole playlist. Hold on, my camera's in the way. If you complain about the choice of music, I fully expect you to bring the whole playlist the next session or to shut the fuck up. You guys are complaining about music? Not every dungeon master does music. Not every dungeon master does music. You should be grateful your dungeon master went out of the way to get some music for you to play to. You should be hella grateful. Don't complain about the music while you're playing, even if it's not fitting the mood correctly, bro. If you got nothing nice to say about the music, just don't say anything at all. I'm serious, dude. I'm dead serious. Like, I'm completely on this guy's side at this point. Not with bringing the whole playlist. You're not bringing a playlist to my session. I will decide the music for what we're playing to. You should be incredibly grateful that a dungeon master is going out of their way to provide you with ambient music. Not every dungeon master does that. Not every dungeon master even thinks about doing that. You know how little I've seen dungeon masters do music because it's just something that slips their mind. Music adds so much atmosphere to the game. 43, cannot stress enough how little I care about how you feel about my rulings from now on. You guys know what I'm going to say by this point. And rule 44, I'm never just threatening you, I'm promising you. Okay. So given the context we have now, and given the way that this guy presents his stuff, I'm gonna kind of just reiterate what I said the last time. If you are at this point where you find yourself writing 44 aggressively worded rules, you, one, probably did not communicate your frustrations before it got to that breaking point, which is something you need to work on. Two, if you're dealing with problem players like this, sometimes you just gotta leave. You don't gotta type this up, man. Imagine how long this took him to type up. Imagine how long this took him to type up, because some of these rules basically repeat themselves. Like the food one basically repeats itself. You know what I mean? This guy took a lot of time to sit down and write this out. He posted it after a hiatus, meaning that he waited at least a week before posting this. You just gotta leave, man. If you're a dungeon master and you are ever dealing with players that are acting like this, and you try to talk it out with them in a normal, constructive way about your issues, and they ignore you and they continue being purposeful assholes, just go. It sucks. And you might not be able to play the game for a while, but no D&D is better than bad D&D. Bad D&D will kill your love for the hobby. Bad D&D will ruin first impressions for players. I have someone in my Discord, because I have a Dead by Daylight channel, so I have a lot of people from that channel in the Discord, who told me that they never want to play Dungeons and Dragons. They have a burning hatred for it because when they were 14, their math teacher forced them to play every single class, and if they didn't play, they would get detention. They've had to play bad Dungeons and Dragons, and now they never want to play it again. And that hurts my heart. This is a great game. I would love to come in and be like, come on, no, try it. Come try it. Let me show you what good Dungeons and Dragons looks like. So you don't have to have this idea of it in your head. But they never want to play it again. They never want to. They have a bunch of friends that they're pissed off at right now because their friends won't leave them alone about it. And the same thing occurs for dungeon masters, man. Sometimes people sit down to be dungeon masters and they get a group of problem players and it kills their love for the game and they never want to play it again. And that sucks. Because when you're playing with a group of people, when you're playing with actual friends, like actual friends, this game is amazing. There is nothing in this world that matches the feeling I get when playing Dungeons and Dragons. And it sucks. But you have to learn how to remove yourself from situations before it gets this far. Because I'm not even saying this as, oh, those poor players. Because I can guarantee you, especially based off the fact that this was posted on Reddit, those players are having a downright laugh at his expense. As the Dungeon Master, you did nothing but give those greedy little shitheads all the laughs they could possibly get. They fucking found that shit hilarious. They thought it was amusing, and they probably joke about it all the time. But for you, for your mental, you fucked yourself up, man. And now, what's it gonna be like when you go into the next campaign? The next time you go to be a dungeon master? You're gonna carry that anger and that resentment with you for what? You're gonna end up punishing players that don't need it for what? Because you stayed in a situation you should have left a long time ago. Obviously, this is something you had the freedom to leave. Multiple times in this list, multiple times. This guy was like, oh man, I will just get up and go home. So you have the power to do that. You have the power to no longer associate with these people. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you're a dungeon master, you've got problem players, and you try to constructively talk to them about the problems, and they continue to be an asshole, just leave. Fuck them. But that's it. I wasn't planning on doing a part 2, but we did it anyway because I found more context, found the rest of the rules, so I thought we'd go over them. Crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely fucking crazy. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. I appreciate you guys, and hey, just to let you guys know, we're very close to getting this channel to YouTube partnership, which my Dead by Daylight channel is already there. So this channel already has a subscriber count. It just needs the watch hours. So spread these videos out to your friends, spread it to your D&D groups, and I'd really appreciate it. And other than that, I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.